Good afternoon. Welcome to Grade 12 English First Additional Language. Today we are continuing with the poetry lessons. The poem we are going to do today is called Spring. I would recommend that you sit with your poem and your notes, that you can highlight and add notes while I'm explaining. It's a beautiful day to learn something new. So here we go. We read through the poem. Nothing is so beautiful as spring, when weeds in wheels shoot long and lovely and lush. Thrush's egg look little low heavens, and thrush through the echoing timber does so rinse and ring the ear. It strikes like lightnings to hear him sing. The glossy pear tree, leaves and blooms, they brush the descending blue. That blue is all in a rush with richness. The racing lambs, too, have fair their fling. What is all this juice and all this joy? A strain of the earth's sweet being in the beginning, in Eden garden. Have, get, before it cloy, before it cloud, Christ Lord, and sour with sinning. Innocent mind and May Day in girl and boy. Most, O my maid child, thy choice and worthy the winning. Right, first of all, if we look at the type and the structure. As you should know, this is a sonnet and different than the one we've done before, sonnet 18. This is an Italian or Petrarchan sonnet consisting of 14 lines. Now for this poem, the structure is really important that you know it off by heart, because you can get a question where they ask you comment critically on the structure of the poem or describe the structure, or you can even get a question where you have to fill in the correct words, and that will be about the structure. So you have to know exactly what's going on here. So you have to say it's an Italian or Petrarchan sonnet. Be very careful. Don't say it's an Italian or Petrarchan poem. It's incorrect. It's a sonnet. And you have to give all the necessary detail. So don't stop there. Tell me it consists of 14 lines. And then the first 8 lines is an octave. It's very important that you name it in the correct order. And the last 6 lines is a sestet. You can't say the sestet first and the octave second. It's incorrect. And then the full rhyme scheme. You will see it's A, B, B, A, B, B, A. It's 2 quatrains that make up the octave. And then the last C, D, C, D, C, D is the sestet. Right, so in the octave, it describes the beauty of spring. And in the sestet, it reflects upon the beauty of nature. If we look at the tone, remember, very important, the 3 T's, tone, title, and themes. Those 3 things are very important with every single poem that you do. In this poem, the first 8 lines, line 1 to line 8, there's a tone of certainty, happiness, joyful, energetic, and it's a celebration. Remember, always tone is about what you hear. Then line 9 to line 12, the poet starts questioning. So it's an urgent poem. It's anxious. It's regret. In the first 8 lines, in line 1 to line 8, with the happiness and the joyfulness, the poet celebrates the qualities of the natural world, the beauty. And then in line 9 to 12, he's asking a question, what is all this energy and happiness? And then the anxiety, where he gets urgent and anxious, is where the poet is worried all the beauty will be spoiled. And then in the last 2 lines, line 13 and 14, the tone is more pleading, because he is begging Christ to intervene and prevent the loss of the innocence of children. Right, so the tone, again, very important. The title. Now, the title here refers to the season of spring with its beauty and freshness and growth. Remember, the spring that the poet is talking about here is spring in the northern hemisphere. It signifies renewal. It is like a new beginning. Everything in spring after a long winter where everything was dead and grey and not growing. Now when spring starts, it signifies renewal, a new beginning. And then for the Christians, it is also the time to celebrate Easter and the resurrection of Christ. Both of those aspects are clearly very important to the speaker of this poem. And then spring metaphorically refer to the period of youth in one's life. All right, so this one word of the title is loaded with associations. Then we get to the last T, and that is themes. First of all, the beauty of spring. Now we know the speaker celebrates the beauty of nature and the profound effect that it has on man. This speaker pays close attention to the natural world and allows it to fill him with awe. The second one, very important, and one that they love to ask, is religion. Now nature reminds the speaker of the power of God. So the beauty in nature is a sure sign for the speaker of the power of God. And in the poem, there are many religious symbols like lambs and the Garden of Eden. Man and the natural world. Now the poet feels that it is the time of the year that brings mankind closest to the harmony of man and nature. The harmony between man and nature is very important to him. And then the innocence. It's more about the loss of innocence, and that could be the source of the tension for this poet in this poem. Remember, when you answer the question on the themes, you have to make your point, explain your point, always give an example and link it back to your question. The example from the poem is really very important. Otherwise, your answer is simply generic and you can't receive any marks for that. Right, we go to line 1. Nothing is so beautiful as spring. Immediately, the poet starts with a simile. Now, where two things are being compared, he's saying nothing can be compared to the beauty of spring. So nothing can be as beautiful, and that in itself is hyperbole as well. And remember, hyperbole is the extreme or over-exaggeration to make a point or show emphasis. So this poet allows no debate. This is the way it is. Nothing is so beautiful. We have alliteration and internal rhyme of the S, and that is to emphasize this beauty. Line 1 also ends with a dash to indicate that an explanation will follow. He will now give examples of why spring is so very beautiful. In line 2, when weeds in wheels shoot long and lovely and lush. Now, weeds are parasites and are generally not viewed in a positive light. In other words, it's those plants that you do not want in your garden, unwanted plants. However, in this line, the poet describes the weeds as lovely and lush, which are terms of admiration. And this emphasizes the harmony between man and nature. Weeds in wheels. The weeds are growing through old cart wheels. So he's describing the beauty of something that are generally not viewed in a positive light. He uses the word shoot. Now the word shoot emphasizes the long stems and the idea of unstoppable growth, moving forward, unstoppable. long and lovely and lush. The word lush refers to extreme abundance. Then we have the assonance of the E, weeds and wheels, and the alliteration of the W, weeds, wheels, and the alliteration of the L, long, lovely, lush. All of those emphasizes the energetic growth of plants during springtime. Line 3. Thrush's eggs look little low heavens. Up to there, if you read that sentence, it seems like the poet has left something out. It is rather supposed to say, the thrush's eggs look like little low heavens. But the poet left out like on purpose to reduce the sense of distance. In other words, he's bringing the eggs and the sky much closer. The thrush in this sentence in the beginning of the line is a songbird. Now, in itself, thrush's eggs look little low heavens is a metaphor, because this bird's eggs has a beautiful blue color. Now, these beautiful blue eggs have a similar appearance as the sky, which is associated with the heavens. The word heavens has two meanings. It can first of all refer to the blue sky, and it can refer to the place where God is found. So immediately a religious tone is introduced and a religious theme can be seen here. The last part, and thrush, you actually have to read the next line to understand this, because the word thrush here is used as a verb. It describes the sound of the bird's song. If we go to the next line, and thrush through the echoing timber does so rinse and ring. So he's saying here the thrush's song echoes through the wood. The timber is the wood. So that in itself is a metaphor. He uses the words rinse and ring, which are associated with washing and cleaning. So he's saying this song has a cleansing effect. It refreshes the listener and lets him experience the beauty of the world during this time of renewal, during this time of spring. And the sentence go on in the next line, because you will listen to does so rinse and ring the ear. So that is where it comes in, where it's a cleansing effect. It refreshes the listener. That's the ear. In line 5, it strikes, still about the song, it strikes like lightnings to hear him sing. Now he used the word lightnings on purpose because it gives the feeling of many lightning strikes and it makes the effect of the song more overwhelming. So the word like tells us it's a simile. So the sound of the thrush's song, that bird, his song, is compared to lightning that strikes. It emphasized that the sound of the bird's song is powerful and loud, like the sound of lightning. To hear him sing, lightning is fast and bright, and that is how he experiences the bird song. The song can be heard echoing through the forest, and it is exhilarating to the listener. Line 6. The glossy pear tree, leaves and blooms, they brush. Now again, if you read the first part, the glossy pear tree, leaves and blooms, it is as if the word grows has been left out. So it should have said the glossy pear tree grows leaves and blooms. But it was done on purpose again. It seems as if one is watching spring in fast forward mode. The pear tree grows leaves and then its flowers blossom. So again, it's about the growth and the movement. To add to that, the word pear tree is usually spelled as two different words, but he's using poetic freedom, and he spelled it as one word to speed up the action. The word glossy, it can refer to the tree that is covered with ice from winter. Remember, the spring just started. So now he's saying the glossy pear tree leaves and blooms. First of all, the metaphor. The pear tree is full of white flowers and it resembles an ice-covered tree. The word leaves is a verb. The ice-covered tree goes away and makes space for leaves and blossom. So it goes away. So it does not only refer to the leaves that grows with the blossoms on the tree, it's also a verb that refers to the ice that goes away, the winter that goes away, and makes space for the spring, for the leaves and the blossoms. And then they brush. They are the trees reaching high up in the sky. And you see again, it goes over to the next line. They brush the descending blue. Now these trees are personified. It seems as if the trees are so close to the sky that they actually brush or touch against it, almost as if they are painting the blue of the sky. So there's the first personification. The second one is the descending blue. Descending means coming down to earth. Now, in this poem and from this line, the poem seemed to be celebrating the heaven on earth feeling of spring. Because this personification is the blue sky hurries down to share its beauty and brightness with the beauty on earth. If we look at the personification of the trees that are brushing the sky as if they are painting the sky, we can look at two more interpretations as well. We can see that the poet is painting a picture for us with his words, like an artist would paint with a paintbrush. And there is also the possibility that the earth has a creator, God, who did this painting for our pleasure. In other words, this nature, what we see outside as the season of spring, the beauty, is the painting that is done for our pleasure. And then he says that blue is all in a rush. So the word rush captures the unstoppable energy of this season. So the speaker here emphasized that heaven is not distant. It reached down to earth to create harmony. Right, we go over to the next line where he says, look at the last part. That blue is all in a rush with richness. So the blue sky, still talking from the last line, the blue sky seems to overpower everything. And the words link with the explosion of beauty described in the previous line. And then he goes on, he says, the racing lambs too have fair their fling. Now the racing means they are playfully leaping and playing. The lambs, immediately you think about a religious connotation. Jesus is referred to as the Lamb of God. Man is seen as sheep in a flock with God as their shepherd. And then lambs are a symbol of innocence and purity. And now they too have fair their fling. Fair meaning they are rushing about excitedly, fling, jumping around. So the abundant joy is portrayed by the lambs here. And then in line 9, he changed with a rhetorical question where he says, what is all this juice and all this joy? So he's asking, what is the meaning of all this growth and energy and joy. Juice being energy, joy being happiness. So he is looking for the real meaning that lies behind the happiness, the energy, and the beauty of nature in spring. Line 10 and line 11, a strain of earth's sweet being in the beginning in Eden garden. Now, a strain of earth's sweet being. It means, a strain means it's just a small glimpse, a small part. So what he means here with the metaphor is spring is a small reflection of the Garden of Eden. So spring is just that small glimpse that we get of what perfection it must have been in the Garden of Eden. That's what he means with that. Now, a strain has another meaning as well. It refers to something that is repeated in music. So spring is a musical echo, something that is repeated of the perfection of the Garden of Eden. Springtime gives us an idea of what the Garden of Eden must have been like before sin. It symbolizes innocence and perfection. Spring is all that is left of the purity of the Garden of Eden. The theme of religion very strongly evident here. Then the rest of line 11, have, get, before it cloy. Now he's saying, enjoy nature as God intended us to see it, before it gets spoiled. The tone changes here to one of urgency and pleading. So he's saying, enjoy what you see before it gets spoiled. Now he's getting urgent and pleading. Then in line 12, before it cloud, Christ Lord, and sour with sinning. Before it cloud, before it become dirty. What makes it dirty? Our sins make the beauty of spring dirty or murky or less transparent because we cannot focus on nature as God intended us to do. And then in the middle of this line, Christ Lord, he addresses God directly. Remember, he's using apostrophe. Apostrophe is a figure of speech in which a speaker directly addresses an absent or dead person or an abstract quality or something non-human as if it were present and capable of responding. In this case, he addresses God directly. And here it begins to sound like a prayer. So he says, before it becomes dirty, because of our own sins, and it's almost like he's praying, and sour with sinning. Now, the word sour means to lose its purity, and that is in contrast with sweet in line 10, where he says, earth's sweet being. With sinning, we all know sinning is committing of bad deeds, breaking God's law. So look at the alliteration of the S, sour, with sinning. It's to emphasize the effect of sin. So the speaker asks the Lord to save the young and innocent from sinning before it's too late. Before it's too late. Line 13, innocent mind and Mayday in girl and boy. Now the innocent mind, the speaker is talking about childhood innocence. And Mayday in girl and boy. Now he sees the childhood of a person as the springtime or the Mayday of human life. So your youth or childhood is the springtime. Everything is pure and innocent and untouched. And he's asking God to save the children's innocent minds from being corrupted by sin. Usually one prays after the sinning has happened. This poet is praying beforehand and asking please prevent that. Save the children's innocent minds from being corrupted by sin. The word May Day is further significant because May is the month in which the Catholics honor the Virgin Mary, and that symbolizes innocence. And as I said, remember, we're working in the Northern Hemisphere, so the 1st of May is the start of spring. Again, the tone here is urgent and pleading. And then the last line, most, O maid child, thy choice, and worthy the winning. Again, we see an apostrophe where he is directly addressing Jesus, because he's saying maid child. Now a maid is a virgin. Now maid child is Jesus, because Mary was a virgin. And then he's saying thy choice and worthy the winning. The words thy choice reminds us that the power to allow sin is in God's hand. And it emphasizes the idea of free will. In order to allow free will, God has to allow sin. So the poem has now become a prayer, one that changes from awe and praise to anguish, despair, and pleading. If Jesus can win the innocent young, they will not be corrupted by sin. So this line actually says, Jesus, it's up to you. Won't you save these innocent children from sin? It would be a very worthy thing to do, to win them to your goodness and keep them free from sin. Right, that is your sonnet. We are quickly going to look at a few questions that were asked in previous exam papers. It's the same questions that we did in our poetry exam revision lessons a few days ago, but it will be more applicable now that you've seen the poem, and now we're going to look at the questions quickly. As I told you about the structure of the poem, so very important, you can either get complete the following sentence, write only the answer next to the question number, where you have to fill in the gaps, or the question will say comment critically on the structure of the poem or describe the structure of the poem fully. Now this poem is an example of a Petrarchan or Italian sonnet. Remember, not a poem, it's incorrect, a sonnet, as it consists of an octave first, because that's the order in which it follows, of 8 lines and a sestet of 6 lines. Or if you have to do it, comment critically on the structure, it's an Italian or Petrarchan sonnet consisting of 14 lines. First is the octave of 8 lines, then follows the sestet of 6 lines, and write out the full rhyme scheme. Name and explain the function of the punctuation mark used in line 1. We did that. We said it's a dash, and it indicates that an explanation of why he says nothing is as beautiful as spring is about to follow. The next one, using your own words, state how the speaker feels about spring. The speaker feels that spring is the best or the loveliest season. Please take note that you have to use your own words. You can't say nothing is as beautiful as spring. You cannot use words directly from the poem unless you are asked to quote. You are going to lose those marks. So use your own words to describe spring as far as possible for all the questions. Why is the speaker's description of weeds? Remember that line, when weeds in wheels shoot long and lovely and lush. Why is the speaker's description of weeds unusual? And remember, I told you weeds are parasites and are generally not viewed in a positive light. It's those plants that you do not want in your garden. You try your best to get rid of it. However, in this line, the poet describes weeds as lovely and lush, which are terms of admiration. Right. Refer to lines 2 to 5. Thrush's eggs look little low heavens. Remember, that's where the like was left out. And thrush through the echoing timber does so rinse and ring the ear. It strikes like lightnings to hear him sing. Okay, so there we have the simile of the song of the bird. Right, identify and explain the figure of speech. I said it's a simile. So the sound of the thrush's song is compared to lightning that strikes. The simile emphasizes that the sound is striking or powerful. The listener can clearly hear the beauty of the season spring. That is the part of the thrush's song. Or you could have said it is an implied simile. The color of the eggs is compared to the sky. The bird's eggs are compared to the heavens because it has the same blue color. That will also be correct. Then give one word for the speaker's tone in this line. Heavens introduce a religious tone or amazement. So you can only say amazement or you can only say religious. Refer to line 4. Through the echoing timber does so rinse and ring. Explain in your own words why the timber is described as echoing. Because the timber is woods. So the thrush's or the bird's song is echoing through the woods. Is the underlined word in line 6, brush, meant literally or figuratively? Give a reason for your answer. Remember, it's where the trees are brushing the heavens. It looks like they are painting the heavens. So it's figuratively. The figure of speech that is used here is personification. The leaves of the trees look like they are painting the blue of the sky. They are brushing the sky. Using your own words, explain the question that the speaker is asking in line 9. What is all this juice and all this joy? Again, so very important. Please use your own words. So the speaker is wondering how to explain or to get a handle on all of the joys and growth of spring. So you can say all the energy and the happiness. He wants to make what to make of all of this overflowing of life. Please remember, use your own word. You can't say the speaker is wondering what is all this juice and all this joy. You can't use the words from the poem directly. Give one word for the speaker's tone in line 11 and 12. Have, get, before it cloy, before it cloud, Christ Lord, and sour with sinning. Remember, this is where the poem starts to sound like a prayer. So the one word you write down is anguish or urgency or pleading or anxious. And then explain why the speaker refers to the Garden of Eden in line 11. So the beauty or the fruitfulness of spring is compared to the beauty of the Garden of Eden. Spring is beautiful and pure because everything was new in the Garden of Eden. That is the comparison he makes. Garden of Eden was new and untouched and pure, and the beginning of spring is the same thing. Discuss the theme of religion that is evident in this poem. Remember, I told you they love to ask this. And then you can say from the sestet, the poem turns into a prayer where the speaker speaks directly to God, apostrophe. Nature reminds the speaker of the power of God. And there's several references to religious symbols like lamps and the Garden of Eden. Right. And remember, nature also, yes, I said it. Nature reminds the speaker of the power of God. Has the speaker convinced you that nothing is as beautiful as spring? Remember, when you get a question like that, you can either say yes or no, or you are allowed to give a combination answer. Make sure your motivation fit with your yes or your no. Look at the mark allocation. Always make your point explain it, and then always use explanations from the poem. Otherwise, your answers are too generic. So if you said yes, spring is the time of year when man moves closest to nature and God. When we see the beauty of spring, which suggests renewal, we are renewed by God. And during spring, everything seems beautiful. Even weeds are described as beautiful. Or no, the power of God is not only seen in spring, but is evident in all the seasons. Each season has its own beauty, and the images used may be too difficult for all the readers to understand, and will therefore not be convinced that spring is the most beautiful season. Right, this concludes the lesson on the poem Spring. I sincerely hope that all of you enjoyed it as much as I did. Have a wonderful afternoon. Make wise choices. Goodbye.